Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate each and every one of you guys making some time out of your day to visit the channel and hang out with me for a little bit. Always grateful for that. Guys, got a really interesting video today. I'm going to talk about a study that was just completed by the biologists at the Texas Park and Recreation Division. They did a 2-year study on Toledo Bend Lake and Lake Fork in regards to answering some questions about the declining success rate that anglers have had since 2018 on those lakes. And they came up with some really shocking information or shocking revelations. And from my opinion, I didn't think it'd go down like that. So I'm going to share it with you guys in today's video. Also, guys, just a couple quick housekeeping tips here to keep the lights on in the burning up tackle room here. Just want to invite everybody to please use and bookmark my tackle warehouse link that I put in the description of each video. If there's one thing if you guys are catching some fish for my tips, the best way to show that appreciation back for that is to purchase your fishing tackle from that link. It's a good way to support the channel. And also, I'd like to invite you to check out our Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns that are back up on the fishthemoment.com site. I'll put all that information in the description in this video if you want to check it out. Okay, guys, what happened is I guess there had been a pretty big public outcry since 2018 about the quality of fishing deteriorating in Toledo Bend Lake and Lake Fork. So in 2020, the Texas Parks and Recreations decided they wanted to get a study together, and over the past 2 years, they've been conducting the study on Toledo Bend Lake and Lake Fork in terms of why that fishery decline is actually happening. And they actually tagged with radio monitors a significant number of bass, released them back into the lake, and followed these bass for the 2-year period. Now, what they found about this, this is one of those things I don't really agree with, but they said in their shocking and their sampling surveys, they didn't have any type of a noticeable decline in the fish populations. I don't necessarily agree with that because it doesn't make sense, because when you're talking about increased fishing pressure from tournaments and recreational anglers, people eating fish, delayed mortality from tournaments, it doesn't equate that the fishery population would be the same now as it was in the past before that stuff happened. I've never been a fan, or I've never really believed that the sampling that conservation departments do in the term of gill netting and shocking give an accurate depiction. But regardless, the first thing they said why they wanted to do the tracking studies was because they didn't notice any decline in the population from their sampling. And here's what they found out about watching these bass and following them for 2 years. First of all, the range that these fish had, they didn't move very much. It's like, based upon the sampling, the vast majority of the bass, for the course of a 2-year period, they didn't go beyond like this 60-acre area of the lake, and most of them stayed within a 10-acre area. So all these bass that were tagged, they stayed like within probably less than a quarter of a mile from where they were released. They stayed there for 2 years. And also they noticed that these fish didn't do a lot of moving back and forth from deep and shallow water. And that's another thing that I don't know if that was an accurate sampling, because guys, I've caught so many bass suspended out over deep water, like suspended over 60 and 70 foot of water in timber tops that had fresh crawdad pinchers sticking out of their mouth. They didn't catch those crawdads suspended out in 30 foot of water over 80 foot of water. They had to go to the bank. So anyway, their studies concluded that watching these fish and monitoring them with the radio tracking, there wasn't a lot of movement. It's like we've talked about here on the channel. I've talked about this a lot before, that bass have individual personalities. Some of them like to live shallow, some of them like to live in the mid-range, and some of them like to live in deep water. And that's one of the big things the study concluded, is that there was a population of bass in this study that just preferred to stay in shallow water. And then there was another population that were roamers, like offshore fish, and another population that were sort of in those mid depths. But what they did find out, and this is another thing we've talked about the channel a lot, I think, and this is one of their biggest reasons why they think the fisheries, the success rate has declined amongst the angler group out there, is that bass are very sensitive and very aware, and their mood and personality changes with fishing pressure and recreational pressure. And they noticed that the larger bass in particular really had a negative impact. They really reacted negatively to any type of external noise, outboard motor noise, electronic noise, trolling motor noise. And they became sort of inactive with that. And it really, really bothered them. And they said, especially in lakes that have grass. The grass lake fish seemed like they were very sensitive to that increased decibel level noise. And in the non-grass lakes, not quite so much. But in general, you know, the two things that came away from this study that really stood out to me, the fact as far as the small home range of the fish and how they didn't move back and forth between deep and shallow water. And I think a lot of that is attributed to some of those fish just stayed deep and some of them stayed shallow. And some of those fish, guys, I know a lot of offshore fish that they live offshore with the exception of just like a 3-week period where they go up to spawn. And it just sort of goes back to the thing we've talked about here on the channel a lot, that every bass are like human beings. Every one of them has a unique personality. Every one of them is different. And what is it that makes one bass want to live its life around this lay down stump in 3 foot of water, and the next bass wants to go chase shad out in the middle of the lake its whole life? That's one of those big mysteries we have in fishing with it. But anyway, interesting study. I will link the study in the description of the video here. If you guys want to read it, you can read the full study with it and sort of absorb it a little bit better like that. I may have left out something that I couldn't remember off the top of my head with it. But ultimately, this whole thing about fisheries management as far as attempting to ensure quality fishing, I'm still not convinced. In fact, I'm not convinced that they are right on this all the time. I think there's way too many variables that you can't control, and there's way too many fish out there that may or may not be there, and a lot of the sampling they have does not directly equate to fishing success. And I don't think you can contribute all of that to noise levels. I don't see that, because I have seen the precipitous decline in bass fishing over the past 40 years. Anyone that's done it as long as I have, you know, especially within quality fish. We don't have near the quality fish numbers in this country as we used to with fish, with the exception of Texas. Texas is by far the leader in bass study and research, and you know, they've made a lot of inroads in maintaining a quality fishery. But then again, they have a lot of good habitat. They have lakes with grass in it. Texas has, you know, warmer weather all year long. It has a longer growing season, so that they have a lot of advantages within the state and the water there that a lot of lakes don't have across the country. But anyway, guys, I'll link it in the description. You might want to check it out there. Interesting read here. I thought you guys might enjoy hearing about it. We'll talk later.